Put your hands up, yeah. To the floor, yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Come down, selector.
That's right. Come on.
To me, this position and him in it is long overdue. And I'm happy. He has always moved forward with building and maintaining relationships.
Humble beyond belief. February, Black History Month. This road would not have been paved by people who have led the way, not just peoples of color, all people. That trail was blazed back in 1965. Dr. Ed Rose. He paved the way. When he came on, he was the only one. 2023, look around this room. Look around this room. Not just black, not just white. This team as a whole, I persevere. I could have easily said, I'm gonna give up. My dad said, I didn't raise you that way. I raised you to be a man, in spite of the challenges that I hear.
Hi, my name is Sue. I'm the CEO at Special Olympics Alaska. Tony is a fabulous board member. And I want to thank him for everything he does for Alaskans with intellectual disabilities. We've got a card from our staff who just think you're fabulous. But I want Aisha to lead us in the way Special Olympics congratulates somebody.
So, we have a cheer in Special Olympics Alaska, and I want all of you to join me in congratulating Tony. Here it goes. So when I say Special Olympics Alaska, you guys say, oh yeah, nice and loud. Special Olympics Alaska.
Oh yeah!
Special Olympics Alaska.
Oh yeah!
That was good, and congratulations, Tony.
They said it couldn't be done, but we did it. So the ultimate sign of respect to each and every last one of you is a salute. And ladies and gentlemen, I come resolute, firm, I salute you. Love to you. Thank you.
Hey, we want to welcome everybody to another episode of You and the Law podcast show. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, Virgil Green, and as always, my co-host, who is I put him in a bigger position tonight. He's where you can actually see him more because he goes by the name of Chief Swaggy One the Beast.
No, the Beast. DABEAST. The Beast.
Hey, man, I'm going to say it the way I want to say it.
That's what you always do, man. You're always getting stuff wrong. But anyway, what's up, man?
Hey, not a whole lot, man. Man, we have got a celebrity in the room tonight who has joined us on You and the Law podcast show. I met this brother back at a Noble conference some years ago back in Fort Lauderdale, and we've always stayed in touch. And it's an honor to introduce you to him, Keith, and for him to be on our podcast show. So, Major Tony April, glad to have you, sir.
My brother, thank you. My brother, thank you. I'm honored to be amongst your midst. I would be remiss if I didn't give the proper greeting from a Southern hospitality. My brother, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So Chief Swaggy One, this brother is originally from Florida. So I will let him tell us more about himself.
Time out.
What's that?
He's from Florida.
He's from Florida, and he's in Alaska.
Wait a minute. I was going to say the Sunshine State, but he's in Alaska. So
Yeah.
I just had to get that out there, man.
hey, man.
You already started now.
Yeah. So when we met at the conference in Fort Lauderdale, and I believe that was your first conference, wasn't it, or was it not? Coming to because you were in your home state of Florida.
Right, that was my first national conference.
Yeah, national.
But I
conference,
did
yeah.
attend. Yeah, I did attend the regional conference.
The
But
regional,
that was
yeah.
my first national conference.
Yeah. So that was man. He was telling us he was from Florida. He was in Alaska, and it was kind of like, man, wait a second. How did you go from there? So I'm gonna let him share with us his journey from Florida and how he ended up in Alaska, because he has an amazing story to tell.
Again, my brother, thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast. I should say amongst your midst. I get asked that question a lot about how in the heck you go from the Sunshine State to the last frontier. So in 1994, I joined the military. I went out to basic training, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. After basic training, I went out to what they call ATI, where you went down there to individual training. The day before I got ready to ship out, my orders got amended. And I was initially scheduled to go to Panama. My order got amended, and they said, now you're not going to Panama, you're going to Anchorage, Alaska. Now think about this for a second. So I'm ready to ship off to Panama, and then all of a sudden my order got changed, and I came up. I came up in April in 1985. And when I got off the plane, it was 42 degrees. Now keep in mind, like I said, anything below 70 in the state of Florida, you got on a jacket and you moving forward. So what brought me to Alaska was my military. The Army sent me here back in I was assigned here back in 1985.
Okay.
Brother April, let me say something. You just can't get a break with the heat, can you? Because you were going to Panama. You were set. So let me just say this. So you was going to Panama.
Uh-huh.
And then they switched you. Man, you were destined for Alaska, man.
That's what a lot of people said. When you have opportunity to get a chance to get outside of the state of Florida in particular. I grew up in an area where we call Goose, and it's a small area outside of what we call a suburb. So when people are talking about, Miami or South Beach in particular, I said that's not the hood. When you start getting around Perrine, Overtown, Liberty City, Homestead, that's the hood. And so I grew up in the hood, and the military was a way out for me to get a chance to experience different things and enjoy different cultures. And so I thank the military for giving me an opportunity. But when I first got to Alaska, it was cold. I was 17 years old, 18, I should say. homesick, just ready to get home. And the first 3 years were extremely tough for me. Being away from home, being in the cold weather. But I just after I met my wife, and eventually we had our oldest daughter here. We left. We left Anchorage, I should say, and we PCS down to what we call the Lower 48. And throughout the Lower 48, I traveled. My wife traveled. She was in at the time, and we just kind of experienced different things throughout the military. And we came back to Alaska. I transitioned out of active duty, got on with what we call a counter drug program. I did that for a bit, and we just kind of go from there. But before I continue on, I was going to stop and entertain any other questions.
Yeah. So, what? How did you get to go from the military to being a trooper?
So, of course, in the military, I do have a wrestling background. So I wrestled in high school, and so it was a natural transition for me being in the military, where you used to that structure, that military bearing. And so when I was looking at transition out of the military, I wanted to join a organization that was similar to what I experienced in the military. And I did have a structure background growing up in Miami, despite growing up in the hood. And so it was just a natural fit for me going from the military and joining the Alaska State Troopers.
Okay.
Brother April, do you find it hard to recruit? Or most of the young men and women that you all recruit, are they live in Alaska, or do you all get recruits from all over the nation?
Great question. And I think as chief, you guys have experienced that and still experience that to this day. Recruitment doesn't matter what department you go to, small, medium, or large department. We all is having tough time trying to recruit. So for me, when I came up, it was at that time, you put an application in. It took me 18 months from the time I submitted my application to the time I went to the academy. So 18 months was a long time. And during that time, we had tons of applicants that was putting in to become a Alaska State Trooper. So in this day and age right now, we still having a challenge trying to recruit, in particular, peoples of color. And so we doing everything we can, like any other chief in the lower 48 or even up here, trying to look at things that may incentivize. What are we doing to attract people to the fold per se, or to our organization? So yes, we do have people that when they join the Alaska State Trooper, a lot of us did come from the outside, but now it is tough. It is tough trying to recruit, but we looking at doing what we can and to see how we can bolster our ranks.
Yeah. So Major, from you touching on recruiting, something that is so many agencies are facing, and so when you came on, do you see a difference in when you came on, uh, years ago and where things are now? Uh, is there anything that you, that you see different that the Alaska State Troopers are doing different in recruiting to, encourage more women or more minorities to get into law enforcement?
Yeah. Excellent question. I think we have actually brought Dr. Patrick Oliver, up to talk about
The
some
former
of the
Noble
things.
Noble guy.
Yes, still current
Yeah,
Noble
yeah.
member. And what he uh, did a deep dive, and he was saying that the failure starts at the top. And when you have a situation where you're looking at trying to recruit, where are you recruiting from? And I think as chief, you guys well know that we're all recruiting from the same pool. And so when you start looking at that pool, either you had a military background, some type of criminal justice, a degree, or some type of security type of job that you may have had. And so one of the things I look at our pay, for instance, we start off. If you're a trooper recruit,
you start off between $82,000. If you have a bachelor degree or higher, you start off with $85,000. If you're a lateral officer, your starting salary the first year is 88,000, and it's top out at 6 years, $106,000. Now, keep in mind, we do have some bonuses that we are looking at, just like any other department. We're trying to look at things that how do you incentivize individuals that come on now compared to when you and I came on. When you ask the question about what is different now than when I came on, the difference is where we didn't have here with an Alaska State Trooper, you didn't have to really do much recruiting per se, i.e., because you had tons of people just trying to get on with the department. But that have changed now, and so when we look at when I came on, it was a career for me, and you have a lot of the troopers in particular, the ones who come on now, it's more of a job. And I think on average, by the time they get to us, they may have hit 2 or 3 jobs before they finally decide to settle down with us. And even with that, they come to the fact, what are you doing for me? And so the days is saying that here's what we can do, here's what we would like you to do. Those days is gone.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about topping out at 6 years. I think you said like 100. Is that 106,000? Is that
Yes, sir.
where? So after 6 years, you don't see any other increases in your salary. Is that?
Oh yes, no. That's what I mean by that. That's where at 6 years, that's not necessarily you topping out. That's just kind of give you a rough estimate of what the starting salary is for a trooper always to
Okay.
6 years. So go ahead.
So when you all look at that and you compare, you all in Alaska, and obviously you get to what's a state that is close to that's in the United States that would be close to Alaska that you guys can kind of compare yourself
So
to.
you talking about comparable cost of living? Or you talking
Well, kind of cost of living, but also, where the salaries are at. When people are looking, give you an example. Say like here in Minnesota, where I am now, you may look at South Dakota, and those two states are pretty close to the border of, say, Canada. Is that something that you all look at in that region?
Yes. So when you look at and you're doing these surveys, I used to work in recruitment as well. So a lot of times a potential applicant will come in and say, okay, what is the starting salary? How much money you can make and so forth. So we actually having troopers with the time on and plus all the other incentive is making over $300,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so on average, if you got anywhere over 5 years or more, and you go out to some of our rural communities where you're getting 50 to 60% step increase, I should say, uh, um, percentage by going out in some of those rural communities. Like I said, you can easily top out with high six figures or mid six figure, depending on how much time you got. But if you got any substantial amount of time, you definitely making well over 200 plus in some areas, and some up to 300,000 per year.
Oh, okay.
Man, I'm going to Alaska.
Yeah. Hey, sir, you sign up. Matter of fact, before we close, I'm gonna give you the website because I want all your listeners to take advantage of it and see what we have to offer.
Yeah. So Major, I think you're coming up on a year when you just got promoted. Kind of take us back to that day. And the video clip I just showed was that promotional ceremony you had with your family there, and a lot of colleagues and a lot of people that support you. And how historic was that? And I believe was he a major that was standing next to you? What was?
Yeah, so he was he's a colonel. So
Colonel.
Yeah, so so I've been on now with the Alaska State Trooper for 26 years. I had a very difficult time when I joined the department, and so there were very few blacks. And I think currently we may be sitting at 9 African American. We never had a female African American trooper, and so
Mhm.
hopefully before we retire, that's one of the things that we would like to try to get African American female and trooper, not just only a female, but any female that we can have join our ranks as well as any other individual. So we would take all comers. But anyway, that day was extremely special. And the reason for that is where when I look at you two gentlemen right now, we always talk about who paved the way for us. And I'm talking to two chiefs who paved the way, someone paved the way for you. And
Mhm.
so, but when I can sit here and look at that, because over the years, you compete, you go through the promotional process, and for whatever reason, yeah, well, you were that close. If you didn't have this assignment, or you didn't go here, you didn't do this case right, or whatever, and so you have those type of issues. But the fact that I was promoted on February the 24th, 2023, during Black History Month was historic for me as the first Black deputy director slash major within the Department of Public Safety, Alaska State Troopers. And the honor of having my wife there, her and I've been married for over 36 years. And that young man was there. He was one of the mentor. I was one of his mentors that who came from challenging background, and I was able to be a part of his life. And so, even though he wasn't my biological son, but I wanted him to be there to enjoy the moment. But it was a historic moment. It was the largest gathering of any promotion. And we was in a place, if we would have hit a different place, it would have been even larger. And during that day, we had tremendous a snow storm. And so a lot of people wasn't able to come in. But to have Dr. Ed Rose, who was the first Black to pave the way for me, and Colonel Maurice Hughes, that was huge. And
Mhm.
when throughout each one of our promotion, we would call him and share in our jubilation that if it wasn't for him, and even gentlemen like yourself, that we may be far away, but we closer than a lot of people think. So it was a historic moment.
Yeah. Well,
Hey,
go
Major,
ahead.
Major, I have a question for you. What's the brother's name that just got the job in Tempe?
The
That's
gentleman
Kenneth McCord,
Okay,
Chief
I
McCord.
yeah, he where was he at? Where was he? Anchorage?
Yes, sir. So he was the Anchorage police chief. He was the first Black chief appointed to that position as well.
I'll tell you, I I learned a lot about Alaskan law enforcement. What was the name of the show? Alaska State Troopers.
Yes.
And I have a lot of respect for um, you all as far as being troopers in Alaska. We talk about troopers being alone out there, their closest backup or assistance might be, here we're in Texas and other cities, it could be, 10, 20 miles away. You're talking maybe double that. It just depends. And I know correct me if I'm wrong, but um, um, would it be like with the Alaskan natives, or would they be like on um,
tribal
uh,
land.
tribal land? Would it be so you have tribes of Alaskan citizens,
Yes, Alaskan Native.
natives?
So
Okay,
yeah, so uh, we within the state of Alaska. I know a lot of people talk about Texas being the biggest state, but you can put Texas inside of
right,
Alaska twice.
right.
So we have a area. The state is 586,000 square miles. So prior to my promotion, I was down at what we call. So when you think about the Alaska State Troopers, think about three agencies in one. So we like the city, because we deal with things within a city area, a certain area, with the invite of that municipality chief, him or her. But also we like the when we say we're a license state trooper, a lot of people would think that we just do traffic enforcement, contrary to what that is. Then we like the sheriff's department because we have such a rural area. So we like three agencies in one. And when you talk about a licensed state trooper, we not only do traffic enforcement, but we investigate major crimes and everything from the most serious all the way into the less serious crime.
So, you mentioned a while ago, we were talking about recruiting in minorities, and your role has been in the Alaska State Police. You talk about, the agency trying to recruit first Black females. And right now, I think if I remember, you said there was 6 or 7 or some number. What was the number?
Yeah, about 9 of us.
About
right
9.
Now.
And that kind of, brings me to when I was a part of the Oklahoma Troopers Coalition, and that, there was the Oklahoma Highway Patrol hired its first Black female trooper who, after, nobody came after her. And I don't know if you've ever, if you've ever met any of the state troopers from Oklahoma, Captain Paul Timmons and Major
Maples.
Major Maples.
Well, he actually he's actually chief. One of the chief.
Yeah. And so, I think, from on the state troopers level, I think that's something that's nationwide, unless you get down south a little bit where there's a much more population of us minorities. You see more Black men and Black women as troopers. But, for a state like Oklahoma to, in 20 years, they never recruited another Black female, you have to ask yourself, Major, why is that? And so even with Alaska, what you guys have got a bigger challenge because of the weather, and the fact that, one of the things that I'm going to play a video is that you guys, it may take you 3 and 4 hours to get to a call. And you and I talked about this many times before. Man, if you got to get on one of them airplanes and you got to fly somewhere, Keith, that is not something that you want to do, man. And then you have to deal with the weather.
Yeah.
Man. You were talking about, before you go to the video, you were talking about Oklahoma. And I don't think Latika would mind us mention her name, Latika Alexander, who was the first and only Black female hired in the history of the Oklahoma State Police. And she just retired. So in 20 years, they didn't hire anyone Black female. And then since she's retired, and she fought for a long time, she went to an HBCU. She fought for a long time to try to recruit additional Black females or females in general. I guess what I want to ask you before we go to the video is that, do you think it's the reputation of the training? Do you think there's a lot of pushback from the male troopers who are a little bit hesitant or reluctant to accept a female, or maybe a little bit of both?
Well, I think one of the things we just talking about some exposure. If you probably see, I do have on my lapel pen.
Got that Noble pen.
Noble, and so one of the things that I think when you start looking at things is where does the power to be, in particular, especially the leaders above us, what are their priority? And so one of the things when the colonel came in, him and I had a discussion. First time in the history that we have had a deputy director, part of his job or duty is to do community outreach. Never had that in the history of the Alaska State Trooper. And so that told me right off the bat, not only that the colonel supports it, but also our commissioners support that. And so being on your show to hear going to give, i.e., the Alaska State Troopers some additional exposure. But what I have done personally, in addition to not just being here, so when I travel, for instance, I talk about the Alaska State Trooper. We go to HBCUs. And so when you bring something up and you say, hey, look, I would like to go here, they talk about doing some recruiting, or they talk about just doing some community outreach. That's where you're going to truly make the bang for your buck. So yes, I think we all can agree that in a culture that we have had, no matter what department or agency you're with, you're going to always have some people going to have that pushback for whatever reason. Some people, we say people don't like change, and sometimes that change is still ingrained in some people.
Correct.
But regardless of what happened, I stand here today like you, Chief, stood there, and when you came up and they said a cream rise to the top, and so you rose to the top, and we're going to continue to do. And my focus, as well as the colonel, but it just should only be our focus, because what happened is when people see people that look like us, they tend to be more inclined to say, let me speak with this person. Let me try to find out a little bit more. And that's where the exposure come in at through, like I said, through your shows and other. That's where you may get people to say, okay, one, I never knew they had blacks in Alaska, or in particular, black in command position.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to remind everybody, if you're just now tuning into the podcast show, tonight's topic is the day in the life of being a state trooper in Alaska. And we've got on our guest, Major Tony April. And Major, I've got a video that I found I want to show our listeners that will kind of give a little bit more context about being a state trooper in Alaska. And I'm pretty sure some of these people you're very familiar with.
Another beautiful day in Alaska.
Travel trailer.
God, I can't believe I get paid to do this.
Look at this place. It is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, so far I'm loving it up here. My whole life, when I was a young kid, I said I'm gonna move to Alaska one day.
I had a pretty good idea at a fairly young age of what I wanted to do, and I can't imagine anything else that I'd be doing.
I want to work for the Alaska State Troopers. You know, most of my entire adult life, that has been my goal, and I've reached it. So I'm where I want to be.
I wanted to walk out and have this wilderness be my back door. You get to see everything here. Glaciers, mountains, animals, wildlife, just walking next to you along the road. We cover all the North Star Borough in Fairbanks, which is about the size of New Jersey. 4 troopers and a supervisor, our VPSO program as well, and we cover 32 villages in the interior. It's an adventure every day. So if you can at least indicate that you're on the side of the road, you know, that'd be great. All right, thank you.
We do the best job that we possibly can. We want to go out, we want to help people, we want to solve crimes, we want to hold people responsible. Responding to an actual crime, or even a horrific crime, may take anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days.
The weather there is really bad, so now you're snowed in and you can't leave. So you have to pack a lot of gear, and you have to be prepared for that. But when you push through that, you find yourself turning into an individual that you didn't even know that you had inside you. There's a rush that comes with the job.
I've got more days at sea with the state troopers without touching land than I do after 4 years in the United States Navy. Traveling around, people are like, is there even any crime up there? You know? Unfortunately, we are needed, so.
We do all of our own investigations here, so not only are you a trooper that's going to handle your minor calls, you're also going to handle the serious ones too.
Be the initial responder, we'll take the photos, we'll be grabbing DNA evidence. The responsibility, it's on you, and I enjoy that.
So this is the Kuskokwim River. In the wintertime, it turns into an ice road. Rural Alaska and rural law enforcement is just different. going on a plane, you're getting on a boat, you're jumping on a four-wheeler, a snow machine.
And we go out there and we search and then we rescue. And it feels good to help people out who need it.
Thanks, Jaden. You rock. We meet with the community. We try to meet with the tribal councils. We make appearances at schools. More than anything, just let the people know that we're there and that we actually care. They don't see us out in their communities. How are they supposed to know?
Hey, how y'all doing?
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Good. I snowboard. I might have to come out and check that out.
Somebody just randomly passing by, be like, "Come on, throw your stuff on." And I've had people just like wave me down, be like, "There's a bad storm coming," and like, "Pack your stuff up. You can come stay with us."
I want to make a difference in my community, and my community is the state of Alaska. I also wish we had more troopers out here to respond.
Alaska State Troopers, we hire the best. Our guard is down, our hands are out, and how can we help you? So it makes this division strong and makes us strong with the community.
Oh, there's a wave. They like me.
Hey, Major, man, you know, that kind of gives you those who are tuning into the podcast a little perspective about what you all have to deal with. And I'm gonna have to tell you, man, when I came up here to Minnesota and when I flew in, the guy on the airplane was like, "Hey, you see these houses down there?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm thinking just dry land. It's like, "Oh no, that's a lake." You know, it's fish houses. And you know, here I am looking at this video and going back thinking of you guys driving across lakes that are frozen over. That's a lot. That is a lot. And so, you know, I can't complain about my short time in Minnesota as compared to what you guys are dealing with in Alaska. You know, Keith, I don't know, man. Can you see yourself driving across a lake in a patrol car, knowing that there's some water up underneath you?
Well, you got to understand the physics part of the physics and the science part of that. That ice is very thick, so you're not talking about sheet, a sheet of ice.
Yeah, you're talking about something at least by 10 inches. Yeah,
I bet you're talking about more than that, right, Major?
Yeah. So depending on where you're at, just a quick story when you're just talking about the territory that we do cover. So the first time I was stationed out in rural Alaska, probably some of my best tours being out in rural Alaska. And the reason for that is where you think you know how to police, you think you know how to deal with individuals, but when you're out there by yourself, it's a whole different ball game. And so being able to go into the community and being able to get immersed into their culture made life a whole lot easier for an individual who's going out there. So yes, I have driven on rivers sometimes what people don't talk about, you could be driving over a frozen river and all of a sudden they call what they call an overflow, and you can have a hole in the ice. And you driving and you have an overflow, you go from there. So the ice does crack, and even though it may be a couple of inches thick, just your nerve the first time you get on there. And literally, I have flown on small planes that people don't like to fly. That's very challenging if someone don't like to fly, because that's mainly how we get around in rural Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
But you name it, snow machine, the coldest I've been in, straight temp was 75 below. So
75 below,
75 below, straight temp, not wind, straight temp.
Golly,
that's right up there with South Dakota, and that's colder than South Dakota.
So so we have hit places in Alaska where it get down to 100 below with the wind chills, but in Fairbanks, which is about 365 miles north of Anchorage, that's the second biggest city. So they average 30 and 40 below during the winter. That's average now.
Average. Wow.
Average.
Wow. So
how many months out of the year do you get nice weather as far as maybe in the 60s or above?
Yeah. So Anchorage right now, what they call is South Central. So the weather tend to be a little more mild here, even though it may get down to 10 below. Now you may say, Tony, that's crazy compared to some of the other
Yeah.
places. So you go up north, like I said, to Fairbanks, where they average 40 below. Then you go out into some of the rural communities where it's even colder in some places. So what you try to do, you got clothes that you purchase, and of course the department give you certain equipment to keep you warm and so forth. But truth be told, if you really want to stay warm, you have to go out there on the private market and purchase what you need to really stay warm.
So it's I don't know, man. I don't how much more can you say it when it's 70 below and you got to get out and you got to patrol in it and you got to work an accident or whatever. So when you talk about Fairbanks and you talk about other parts, so in Anchorage, so right now you're in Anchorage. So how far are you from Fairbanks? So is Anchorage in the northern part or the southern part?
So they call it South Central. So it's in the southern part, and so within Anchorage. So Anchorage is the biggest city. I believe you may have shy of 500,000 people here in Anchorage. And Fairbanks is the second biggest city. So within Anchorage, you have the Anchorage Police Department. So they do a lot, excuse me, a lot of your police here within the city. But we have partnership, and so if they have something going on, vice versa, we have something, and then all your federal partners that you deal with as well. So one of the things that we do, if the Anchorage Police Department, they chief or leadership say, hey, we would like you guys to come in, i.e., the Department of Public Safety, take over investigation or assist with investigation, we do that. And so we have task force, like any other agency. We got members that are members of task force. We have task force members that are members of our partners from the federal all the way to the municipality. But from Anchorage to Fairbanks north is about 365 miles.
So is it true that two of the major things that incidents that you all deal with is intoxication and suicides?
Well, unfortunately, we have per capita. We lead some nations in some grim statistic, and you're trying to do what you can to reverse that. We do have, and that's just not in some of our rural communities. That's just in Alaska overall. But unfortunately, like I said, people being inebriated is a major issue, especially during the summertime. Excuse me, during the wintertime, where people may be outdoors and they may not have places to go, and then they consume alcohol, and then they wind up perishing or getting in frostbites and those sorts of things. And so within Alaska, like I said, some grim statistic. Someone lose their life to suicide, domestic violence, sexual assault, and sexual abuse of a minor. And so, unfortunately, those are statistics that it's not good for any area. But you do what you can to try to investigate those cases, make the appropriate arrests, and send the charges over to the district attorney for charging, and then of course eventually they go to trial if a trial is had, or whatever plea deal that they may consider.
So Major, I think you were just talking about the types of crimes when it comes to the language of how troopers are dealing with the Native Americans. Has that been a challenge for you all? And obviously, it helps when you have troopers who can speak some of that native language. And I guess, do you all see any people from? I know there's a trust factor there, and you don't see a lot of Native Americans who are getting into law enforcement. But is there some kind of a program that encourages those Native Americans to get into law enforcement?
Yes. So yeah, excellent question. So one of the things that people would tell you if you work for me when I was talking about how the colonel as well as the commissioner support me my role when it comes down to community outreach and community engagement. And so one of the things that when you do get out in some of these communities, some of them still speak their native tongue, but you do have a translator, i.e., say a village public safety officer. He or she can be there in those communities that can help translate some of the things that we may not be able to understand. Um, and I'm a big proponent. Within the first 5 years, when I first came on, you can be transferred what we call out to some of our rural communities. And the reason for that is where they wanted to give troopers like myself and others the experience that, like I said, you may be in an urban area, but it's a different way of policing in the rural area. And culturally, some of the things that we may not necessarily have been exposed to, you can go out there, you can offend someone. And so, not intentionally, but it's because you just don't know. So, for instance, within a lot of the native community, where you and I are talking, and sometimes they may raise their eyebrows. For instance, that may mean that they may not come out and say yes, this happened. They just raise the eyebrows, and if you understand some of that, you be like, okay, I take that to mean yes, this happened. And I think when, like in any other culture or communities, when people don't understand each other or they don't understand the culture or try to get to know the culture, then you have some stereotypes and everything else. And unfortunately, here in Alaska, you have some of that stereotype as well. So you just try to do your best you can. Like I said, if you work for me, you're gonna have to go out there and be engaged in the community, even if taking 10 minutes, uh, going from a call to another. You got to do some things. So that's a priority that I set not only for myself but individual who work for me or I work for them.
Okay. Okay.
Where are you currently assigned, Major?
So I'm in what we call the Anchorage headquarters. This is the Department of Public Safety headquarter building. So this is where all your command staff, i.e., so I break it down as far as how we are paramilitary. So the commissioner and the deputy commissioner, the commissioner is appointed by the governor. The governor, his staff, they look at what commissioner that they would like to appoint to those particular organizations. And within our rank structure, so the commissioner and deputy commissioner, those are appointed positions. We have two divisions. You have what we call a blue side Alaska State Trooper. Then we have what we call the AWT, the brown side of Alaska Wildlife Troopers. So all of us go through the same academy, paramilitary academy, and then you can decide prior to coming on board where you would like to try to serve which division. But yes, we do have that. And so you have a colonel. The colonel is appointed by the commissioner. Um, my position is a promoted position. Then you have captains, lieutenant, sergeant, corporals, and investigators. And of course, troopers.
Now, do you all also provide executive protection for the governor of Alaska?
Yes, we do. And I used to be part of that detail. But depending on what governor comes in, he or she, they may say, okay, we appreciate that. We got to, in addition to with the governor, he or she have their own security detail. If he travel, they tend to say, okay, we're going to travel to Anchorage. They may give us word if they need any additional resources or manpower.
No, okay.
I do have a question about as large as Alaska is as far as landmass, and we talked about the traveling time. Do you have one large emergency response team, or is the emergency response team for each respective uh, area or each state? I mean,
Excellent,
not state, but
excellent.
each
Uh,
city.
City, yeah, excellent question. So what we in the lower 48, when you say you're a state trooper or highway patrolman, some people call them troop. You know, you're gonna have a troop here, you're gonna troop A, B, C. Up here we call it detachment. We call it letter detachment. So you have letter A detachment, which is down on our peninsula. So that's Soldotna, Homer, and that area down there. Then we have what they call B detachment. That's the Matsu Valley. So that's just north for about 50 minutes or so, or hour drive north from Anchorage. Then you have C detachment. C detachment is our rural community. So everything from Little Diomede, which is on the tip by Russia, all the way down to the chain down in Dutch Harbor. So that's the area that C detachment are responsible for. Then you have D detachment. So D detachment, what we call the interior, that's up north. That's Fairbanks area. And so I have served in only detachment that I have not served in was B detachment, but I did a lot of work up there as a narcotic sergeant.
So Major, you just mentioned Russia. I got to go back and recall something that a former governor mentioned. I'm pretty sure you probably know what I'm referring to.
Yes.
And you got to be careful with that. You got to
Yeah.
be careful with it.
Yeah.
The major's still employed, so be
Yes,
careful.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Don't mention
Yeah.
names, Virgil.
No,
No,
we can start.
that person is no longer, former
It
governor.
don't
But
matter. Just
I know.
be
But
careful with that.
when you mentioned Russia, that was I couldn't resist
Yeah.
to bring that up.
Yeah.
So Major, I think one of the things, and as we talk about, the day in the life of being a state trooper in Alaska, for those who are listening and watching this podcast, to kind of put this in perspective of how large Alaska is that and you mentioned this earlier, that Alaska is the largest U.S. State by area, comprising more than the next three largest states of Texas, California, and Montana. That is a lot. When you think about how, the size of California, you think of the size of Texas and even Montana combined, that Alaska is the 7th largest subnational division of the world. That is a lot of territory that you all are responsible for covering. And yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to know. I wanted to know what's your staffing, total staffing for the department.
The whole, yeah.
Yes. So we have about 450. And so when you just talk about
So you
how
say 450 for the whole?
yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So
wow.
when you're talking about travel, so we do have our aircraft section. So that's how a lot of time, a lot of ways we get around it through our aircraft section. So when you fly, for instance, we just talked about a 3-hour call. You can run a cold run down in what they call down in the state, licensed siren. You can run a cold run here for 2 solid hours, and that's pedal to the metal if need be.
Wow.
And you just you going from one area to another. I have been out in areas and communities is where my backup was 3 days, not 3 hours,
3
not 3
days.
minutes, 3 days because you couldn't get in. You get weathered in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where your skills come in at is for how do you, i.e., deal with a situation that can be volatile, but at the same token being able to resolve it if you don't have some backup that may be on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of time when we get when the balloon goes up per se, we summons everyone and say, okay, we need you to meet down here. We're going to get on the plane and we're going to go out to wherever area that we need to go to. So we do have helicopter. We have Super Cub, small plane, mid-sized plane, i.e. Caravans and a King Air. Other than that, that's like I said, most of the time that's how we get around,
Mm-hmm.
or we charter.
Yeah. So Major, when you look at when you came on some 26 years ago, where technology was at back then, where the transportation was at then, and now, I'm pretty sure you probably look back and it's like, man, just getting on a single engine plane.
Yeah.
And I think we've all, Chief Humphrey mentioned the show that was on before about, Alaska State Troopers, and you have to have a lot of respect for what you all, you and all those other troopers do up there, because as you just mentioned, right now less than 500 troopers, and when you talk about, say, metropolitan city, as coming from Florida, just an example, Oklahoma City is close to 1,000 police officers. And that's and you're talking about, you guys are covering an area that is you can put Oklahoma inside of Alaska and still have enough room. So that is a lot. And I don't know if people just really understand how much area you all are covering with the amount of people.
Well, you know what? I wanted to say something though, and Major, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in doing research about Alaska and law enforcement, I don't see a large number of officer-involved shooting or officer-involved fatality deadly force situations in Alaska with police, with law enforcement, even with what you're talking about, the long response times and things like that. What are you all doing differently in Alaska to minimize deadly force incidents, even including officers being shot, but officers having to use deadly force or some level of force against someone who lives there, a call that they may be on at the time?
Excellent. Another excellent question. I think go back to what I said earlier, being engaged in the community. And so if you're going to be engaged in the community, hopefully you're able to get to know the community and they're able to get to know you. And hopefully that will lessen any type of use of force. Just our president, we all know that's the lowest level. Just showing up in uniform truly make it different. And I have talked to a lot of my colleagues that is in the lower 48, and they said, Tony, I couldn't do your job. And believe it or not, even though with the amount of people that we do have, or the lack thereof compared to other departments, we tend to have less problem than someone that may be within the urban setting. And I think a lot of it, of course, paramilitary, over the history, the department have had a reputation. You go in there, they say one riot, one trooper per se, but you had that respect, and you not only that people command that respect within those respective areas, but you earn that respect as well. And I think it's different. Now, yeah, so recently, like I said, we have had some officer-involved shooting like any other department.
Sure.
But I think being able to, the days of no comments, I think those days are gone. I think part of it is too where you try to engage in the community early. And also, I think part of it is where we're able to move around from one department to, one unit or area or detachment. And so they give you a different perspective, who you may encounter, what you may encounter in certain area. And so I think that's part of what we do. We take pride in that. But like any other agency, we're not immune to things either.
Yeah. Hey, Major, we're coming up on the last few minutes of the podcast show, and I want to give you some time to put out some information about how people, if they're interested in becoming a Alaska State Trooper, how they can find out more information about that. And we'll take this. This podcast was to really highlight yourself and the accomplishment that you've made, but also to share with those who are listening and who will probably listen to this show how they too can become an Alaska State Trooper, especially if you're a minority.
Yes. So again, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. And if it wasn't for people like you and others that paved the way for people like myself, we wouldn't be where we are to this day. And so, again, no matter where you come from, because you experience some things that I haven't experienced, but I can only imagine. Doesn't matter where you were, somebody mentored and believed in you, and you believed in yourself, and you kept moving. But one of the things I would say in closing is where go to the website alaskastatetrooper.com, and that would take you to our recruitment page, and it would talk about some of the benefits, things that you could do. I mean, money and benefits that you will receive, and also they give you overview of kind of what Alaska State Trooper is all about. So you have everything that is in there, kind of like a one-stop shop. alaskastatetrooper.com, and so all one word, Alaska State Trooper, no s.com. So with that, like I said, I hope to your listening audience that this was informative, where you can be able to take back information. And of course, I got to put a plug in that we need some applicants, and we're willing to take a look at you, and hopefully you meet the qualification and get through the process, and we can call you an Alaska State Trooper. So again, I can't thank you gentlemen enough, and I hope I made you proud.
Oh, you did, man. I mean, just the fact, man, that we were able to inform the listeners and the viewers, and they'll spread the word that there are African Americans in Alaska doing amazing things, and especially in law enforcement. So I just want to say I really appreciate you for all that you've done, all that you continue to do, and I wish nothing but the best for you and the department.
Yeah. Well, I have to say this, man. I've been trying to get this brother on the podcast show for quite some time, man.
Yeah.
So it definitely is been a pleasure having you on, and definitely look forward to. I won't be at ICP, but we're definitely me and Swaggy One, man. We're gonna come to the Noble Conference in New Orleans, man, and we're gonna see how much.
I thought you would.
We're gonna see how much.
I thought you were getting ready to say we're gonna come to Alaska, man. Hey, Major, I'm there with you in spirit, man. I'm there with you in spirit, man.
It's not what you think. You come up.
Hey, man, we can go to Anchorage. I think we can go to Anchorage.
Actually, you can go through the entire state, depending on what year you come up. But I think if you haven't had a chance to Google Alaska, potentially Google some of the tourism locations, cities, and everyone talk about the Alaska king crab, the cruise ships. It does have some great things to offer, without a doubt. And so I would encourage you, if you're listeners or yourself, you got to stand the invitation to come on up and see us.
All right. So I got one last question before we end. After retirement, are you still going to be in Alaska, or are you going to go back south?
Yeah, what the missus said throughout our military, we were moving every so many years. And now when those grandbabies came, two energetic grandbabies, so Mama said, you know what, the boss, I would say, she said, we have dead-eye traveling, we have dead-eye time, and now it's time for me to go see some grandbabies. And so I think I'll lose that argument every day of the week.
Hey, VG,
yes, sir.
VG, before we go, I do have something I want to say.
Yes, sir.
To the listeners and the viewers out there, I want to take the time to recognize Siobhan Bland, who was the sister of Sandra Bland, who you remember died in police custody several years ago. Siobhan has just been sworn in as a Dallas police officer.
Wow.
And in talking to her, the media talking to her, you know, she said basically her decision was based on the fact that she had she could either stay angry or she could get in and make a difference.
Do something.
And so I wanted to give a shout out to her for taking that step, which keeps me optimistic that we do have individuals who have suffered from or know someone that want to get in and change the reputation of the profession. So she's in her field training process in Dallas. I think she'll do well, but shout out Siobhan. Good luck to you. Be safe and very proud of you.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Major, Tony, April, it's been a pleasure, sir. And, you know, we, a lot of people have learned more about the Alaska State Troopers. And so we definitely thank you for taking the time to come on and to talk to us about being a state trooper in Alaska. So thank you, sir.
Brother, we appreciate you, man.
And I salute y'all. Continue to pave the way for the ones that's going to come behind us.
All right. So everybody, make sure you tune in next Thursday for another episode of You and the Law Podcast Show.
All right, good night.
Get your hands up, yeah. To the floor, yeah.
That's right.
Come down, selector.